Alvarezsaurids. Welcome, guys, once again to the channel, Ranking with Dinosaurs, where we rank, you guessed it, dinosaurs. And today we're back, once again, with dinosaurs. After, making videos about non-dinosaur, animals. We're back. So we're going to be talking about a certain group of dinosaurs that have neglected towards this point. Because, honestly, I did not think they would be that interesting to talk about. Again, this was before my research. I decided to give them a chance, and while I do think they're still a little too similar to each other, I think it was worth it. I think it's worth to make a tier list about these guys. I think they're gonna be awesome. So, Alvarezsaurids are gonna make their debut on Ranking with Dinosaurs. Without further ado, guys, I'm gonna be starting with Alvarezsaurus. So, we're gonna be starting the tier list with the namesake of the group, Alvarezsaurus. It is a dinosaur genus from the late Cretaceous that lived in current day Argentina. So, this is a very small dinosaur, measuring only like 4.6 feet or 1.4 meters, and only weigh like 6 pounds, 6.6 pounds, or 3 kilograms. Now, as with all Alvarezsaurids, the namesake, it was a theropod dinosaur. Yes, a Coelurosaur, to be much more precise. They had these very characteristic long tails and very long and thin legs. Now, this leg structure specifically suggests that these guys were very adept at running. They were very fast runners. Judging by their size, they were probably not, chasing anything, or, well, maybe small lizards and mammals, since these were, most likely carnivorous dinosaurs, but probably most likely using them for, running away instead of chasing stuff. But again, these guys exhibit one of Alvarezsaurids' most, prominent features, which is, the single-digit claw. Now, this was the second digit on their hands, and they had a very enlarged claw. Now, this was the only claw that they had in their hands, but unlike popular belief, they still had two extra digits, third and fourth, which were most likely vestigial. That's why you can't see them in most reconstructions, although some reconstructions do add them. But I don't know what the actual logistic of just covering it in skin, so it doesn't look like it has them, or you can just probably put make them separate parts of the actual arm and not just like tucked into the skin. But yes, this guy specifically Alvarezsaurus is considered a basal member of the family. In general, Patagonian Alvarezsaurus were thought to be the most basal. However, there was a discovery in China that proved otherwise. There was a much more basal one. So yeah, that's where Alvarezsaurus typically are found, is either Asia or South America, to be more precise. And there are some outliers, but these are the two main locations. So Alvarezsaurus, it's like middle of the road. It's gonna be a straight B tier. LINHENYKUS. LINHENYKUS is an Alvarezsaurid, go figure, from the late Cretaceous of Inner Mongolia. Now, you might be thinking, oh yes, Inner Mongolia is in the innermost part of Mongolia. No, this is in China. I know. I was very confused when I read it the first time. I was like, are you sure? And then I had to Google Inner Mongolia. And yes, it is in fact in China. Going back to LINHENYKUS, though, it is one of the most basal members that has been found in the Asian continent. Now, I was talking about how there was a very basal member that was found in Asia, because it was thought the Patagonian, South American Alvarezsaurus were the most basal ones. LINHENYKUS is not that one. This is another one, not the most basal, not the basal most, but still pretty basal. I've said that word like 10 times already. Staying on track, though, with other Alvarezsaurids, this guy measured a whopping 1.6 feet or 50 centimeters. I know, pretty insane. And weighed an outstanding 18 ounces or 500 grams. So, LINHENYKUS, we can pretty much say, is the chibi version of, Alvarezsaurus. Again, these guys were characterized by their, short forelimbs with a single and large second digit. However, I know I said previously with Alvarezsaurus, unlike Alvarezsaurids, this guy actually is the first known to have a single second digit. So it did not have a reduced, third and fourth digit. It only had the second digit. That's it. So LINHENYKUS, even though that looks like a pretty derived feature, just lose all the other all your digits. This guy actually was, pretty basal. So a little bit contradictory. So this guy was, like, I don't need my fingers. However, one of the other cool things about Alvarezsaurids, but we'll talk about it in LINHENYKUS, is that these guys were most likely insectivorous, and they used their little, their little digit hands, well, it was the second digit, so it should be this one, in their diet, which was, digging up anthills and such. So LINHENYKUS, pretty adorable. These guys were probably very like running around in late Cretaceous. So LINHENYKUS, I think because it's like a cheaper version and looks adorable, it would be adorable today. I think I'm gonna put it in A tier. SHUVUUIA. We're back, and we're gonna go to the late Cretaceous, where this little theropod Alvarezsaurid was living, and specifically in Mongolia, and much more specifically in the Gedocta formation. Yes, the same Gedocta as Velociraptor and Protoceratops. So it had some pretty famous neighbors. Now, again, this was a small and lightly built little animal at only 3.3 feet or 1 meter. So stretching the boundaries of Alvarezsaurian sizes, and around 3.5 kilograms or 7.7 pounds in body mass. Now, from SHUVUUIA, we actually do have a skull, and it's pretty well known since we got a pair of very long and slender jaws, and they were packed with very minute teeth that served for their insectivorous diet, which we've talked about before. However, it is very unique. Now, because we've actually done some brain scans, did some, well, not us, but actual paleontologists, not me, did actual research, and they discovered that this guy can actually pull off what it's called what is it called? I can't remember. Prokinesis. Yes. So they could perform prokinesis, which, if you don't know, it means that they could flex their upper jaw independently from its brain case. So that is pretty unnerving. And so instead of going like this, they go like this. That's pretty cool. I have to say, SHUVUUIA, you get points for that. Another, impressive feature is apparently its lagina, which is part of the ear, the inner part, most of the ear, is actually comparable in size to barn owls. Now, this is a little bit disputed currently, so I'm not saying it is 100% right, but maybe these animals were maybe had a much more nocturnal lifestyle, so as to not be in the dangers of the diurnal animals like Velociraptor or Protoceratops. Again, SHUVUUIA, I think it appeared in the Dinosaur Planet episode, if you remember that show. I think it's the little, had a white plumage as well. And he absolutely got decimated by an oviraptor. Yes, I remember that. I am debating in putting an S tier. But I think I'm going to put in, oh God. I'm going to leave it in A tier. For now. Bonapartenykus. Now we're going to be moving on with an Alvarezsaurid from Argentina. Yes. So it was found in the Allen Formation. Now this is a late Cretaceous formation. Very popular and very, very well known, since it does have a lot of different, animals that we know today, like, Ostroraptor and Niebla, which is a oh my God, I forgot the name, a Belissaur, and several different smaller sauropods on the smaller side, like Iolosaurus. But this formation is specifically very interesting, and it does lend some shed some light on Bonapartenykus when I talk about it a little bit more, and I stop talking about Allen Formation. But the type specimen of Bonapartenykus is actually known from an almost completely articulated skeleton, and it was found in association with 2 incomplete eggs and several eggshells as well, and which probably belong to said dinosaur. Now, this guy was named actually fairly recently. Well, I say recently, but 2012. It feels like it was yesterday. Oh my god, I'm old. But the estimates. This is the big part. Estimates put Bonapartenykus at 10.8 feet or 3.3 meters long, weighing a maximum of 159 pounds or 72 kilograms. Yes, this is the Hulk of Alvarezsaurids. This is the big guy that I was hoping to find when I was doing my research on Alvarezsaurids. I was so happy. You should have seen my face when I was like, how many freaking pounds in Alvarezsaurid? A single one? This guy's huge. This makes it the largest member of Alvarezsauroidea. Pretty awesome. I guess the actual question would be, deciphering the exact, role it had in its environment. Still a mystery because maybe it was preying on slightly larger prey than, his other cousins. But, maybe it still maintained the same ecological niche. And as I was saying, the Allen formation actually sheds some light on why Bonapartenykus is so big. And it's because Ostroraptor and Dromaeosaur is also pretty freaking big. So, I don't know, maybe the smaller animals like Dromaeosaurus and Alvarezsaurus in this particular formation or this location, they didn't have that much predators. So, they got bigger. That's pretty interesting. I actually love Bonapartenykus. I think it's one of my favorite Alvarezsaurids. I'm going to put it in S tier right at the gate. Parvicursor. Now, this was a very small Alvarezsaurid. Actually, its name reflects this, the small runner. And it lived in late Cretaceous Mongolia. Now, again, this guy had, pretty typical long, slender legs, adapted for, very fast running. And it was actually discovered in the Barungoyot formation. Now, again, this was Mongolia, and this was an ecosystem that it shared actually with a handful of different other Alvarezsaurids. So apparently, these guys were proliferating in this part of the world. Specifically, with Parvicursor being one of, if not the smallest dinosaur in general, for the purpose of the video, Alvarezsaurid, at a whopping 39 centimeters or 1.2 feet, and weighing 5.7 ounces or 162 grams. Now, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. This is one of the smallest dinosaurs ever. I got. Guys, however, recently, these estimates have been doubted, and apparently, this was only a juvenile dinosaur. And it could be a juvenile of another much better, of better remains, Alvarezsaurid. But, we see their stubby little forelimbs, perfect for, opening termite mounds and, aid their insectivorous diet. Or maybe even they use their little hands to, dig or something. Maybe they borrowed. Don't quote me on that. That's just me yapping. I don't know if they could borrow. I don't know if that is a thing that has been, researched. But, Parvicursor, you absolutely disappointed me. I am sad. You were not the smallest. You were just a baby of probably another dinosaur. Gonna go in C tier. Mononykus. Now, Mononykus is an Alvarezsaurid from the late Cretaceous of Mongolia, specifically the Namek formation. So, a pretty, well-known and popular formation from Asia. And like Shuvuuia, something I didn't mention is that Shuvuuia has been found with feathers associated with it, not like directly on top, I believe, like on the fossil. But these guys probably had a coat of feathers. Again, these were Stolorosaurs, so it's no stranger to feathering, and they probably resembled shaggy feathering from modern birds. And these guys, being as small as they are, they probably needed those feathers. Probably for insulation, not only during the day, because this was a very arid region. Probably needed it during the day to protect itself from, the sun, very harsh sunlight, or during a night, and where the temperatures dropped like really low. So again, this was a lightly built with thin legs animal. How crazy? We haven't seen that before. But, you know, again, it only measured like 3.9 feet or 1.2 meters and weighed around 7.7 pounds or 3.5 kilograms. Again, singular claw digit, it actually measured like around 3 inches or 7.7 centimeters. And this was going to be kind of a repeat, but again, the brain case analysis for Mononykus also shows us that the inner ear structures are very similar, again, to barn owls. Now, this is an idea that was actually put on the show Prehistoric Planet, if you've seen it, where, you know, the Mononykus in the show, absolutely beautiful model. I love it. It is one of the most lifelike dinosaur, like CGI dinosaurs I've ever seen. It's actually insane how good the Mononykus, specifically Mononykus, looks, because it has all the feathering and it looks absolutely real. And it shows again, this in the show again, it is a speculation that it had a facial disc of specialized feathers. What these feathers do is that it catches different sounds and it actually directs it straight to the ear. So, you know, it can, you know, maneuver and, you know, be aware of its environment much, much better. Just for the show, I could put it in an S tier. So, you know what? I am going to put it in an S tier. And that is going to be the tier list, guys. Again, thank you so much for watching the Alvarezsaurid tier list. I wonder how many YouTube videos about Alvarezsaurids there are. But, you know, I actually end up really liking doing a lot of research for this little peculiar little guys. I actually found some of them pretty interesting. Again, they are very, you know, samey, but some of them, you know, they got their charm, and I hope they conveyed it to you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what other different dinosaur groups, which I definitely haven't talked about before, you want me to touch on and make a tier list about. Or if you want a part 2 of Alvarezsaurid tier list, because there are some that I left out. Once again, thank you for watching. If you want to help the channel, there's 2 things you can do. Like the video, helps a lot. Subscribe helps even more. And I will see you guys in the next video.